Eric had one picture that he showed me of a string of laundry on a line, and he said he envisioned lots of shadow play, and that characters from the story would appear from behind the laundry, or sometimes peeking through it, or entering through it, or at times taking the laundry down and it revealing whatever the rest of the environment might be. It's got to have the feeling of a caged-in quality. So I had this whole idea of a bird cage that would be the environment, and somewhere in between we melded those two ideas together to what you see on stage right now, so that it starts out as this maze of laundry that actors are able to maneuver through, and little by little it gets stripped away so that by the end of the play you're left with a caged-in feeling that's the bare essentials of what's there on the stage. Laundry is a pretty universally recognized thing, which is, they mention these Dick and Jane books that the little girls read. So rather than actually having books on stage, I used this image of a collage of torn pages from the Dick and Jane books as the whole floor, which is something Eric also wanted to play with, was a sense of scale. So then rather than a normal book-sized page, the whole stage floor is the size of many pages of books ripped and torn and put down and then trodden upon, and this oncoming storm that approaches with the same time that Charlie, the father, approaches the house that Piccola is washing dishes in, and he sees her, and first begins to rain on a window. All you see is rain on a window, and then, since it's not a literary set, we have the sort of setup that you're inside the Breedlove's home, and the sense that there's leaks in the roof, and so you start to see little by little these streams of water penetrating through and hitting the sink and around Piccola where she's washing dishes. And then as you see Charlie recognize her and enter the room, he brings this rain with him, so all of a sudden the whole room starts to rain, and there's an overwhelming deluge of water that literally floods the stage. And then there's, all you hear is water and rain, and then there's total silence except for the few drips of water that are still coming down from above. So it's a real cathartic moment, both visually and metaphorically, for the play. I often use metaphor to capture some sort of visual representation of the text. A lot of visual elements replace, paragraphs and paragraphs of text from the book. It's very stylized, actually, as far as the staging of the play and the movement of the actors through the space. Visually, for the actors, they always create a sense of where they are, kind of based on their position on stage, rather than let's put a bunch of furniture to make it a room. It's just one element and the way the characters behave in that space that makes it different from one to the next location. Things are half hidden, and there's a sense of revealing things, people especially, and shadows from behind this series of many layers and layers of laundry. And as the story unfolds and becomes more apparent, so does the laundry, disappears from the beginning to the end of the play to expose like a bareness to the whole space and a sense of hardness. There's lots of steel involved that's actually covered up by the laundry at the beginning, but by the end of the play all you see is wood and steel and a hardness. And the actual empty theater, we didn't do anything to really mask the backstage area because we wanted to expose it as sort of the harshness of life at the end of the play. So from going from something that's very airy, literally, we have fans blowing the laundry, beautiful, soft, white, light, sunlight, to this hard, cold, black arena at the end of the play. So it moves from a feeling of hopefulness to a feeling of desolation. There's a couple of sexual scenes that are, one's kind of explicit. There's a scene in the muscadine field, and then there's the actual rape, which is not explicit at all as far as seen some physical act of violence on stage. It's described by the actors on stage, and that's a step that Eric took as far as, relating and explaining the story. This scene in the muscadine field where two people very lovingly are making love to one another, and they're interrupted quite violently by some onlookers who point a gun at them. Although you don't see the gun, you just see this blast of light, which is supposed to be it's nighttime and they're putting flashlights on them. And that there's a sense of actually talking about something. That's one of the things of just exposing the story, literally. It's okay to talk about these things. There's this turning point in the play where the three little girls go to visit Mrs. Breedlove, who's Piccola's mother, and she's working in the big white house on the hill. And the one thing that we have that changes the whole space again, that is the only representation of this white house, is this big kitchen floor that rolls into a space that's relatively dirty and played upon and colored on, and it's this slab of white that comes in and interrupts the space. And besides that, there's this one element in the set it looks like a white house, but it's really a sparrow's house, like you might see in a backyard that sparrows sit in. So again, it's the metaphor for the bird and house and the white house on the hill, and sort of isolated rich people away from this world that these three little girls live in, which is very poor. So there's this contrast going on between dirty and colored and free and playful to very controlled and white and clean and immaculate and don't mess with this kind of thing.